And I'm not telling people who to marry and who not to marry. I'm questioning why they're doing it. I'm questioning why an African would want to sleep in the same bed with the person who has and continues to destroy his or her people. And the answer lies largely, I would argue, in the fact that they don't see Africans as their people, who would want to see themselves as part of people who are despised, who are ugly, who are powerless. And that's what has driven a lot of us away from who we are, not realizing that power and the definition of beauty comes from inside, not from somebody else. We've been accepting it from somebody else. I would continue with a better sexual fit.
I just have to go there with you.
And for me, it was kind of funny at that time because this is the first time I think I laughed at students. There was a group of students who came in the summer. They were in transition from high school to college, and they were prospective students. They weren't students yet, they were prospective students. But usually prospective students ended up at the college, especially when they come there for, I guess it's a 6-week session at the college. And I was lecturing to them one day on race relations and manhood and all the rest of that, and I was talking about interracial coupling and the problems with it. And this one guy got up and he stood and he said, "No, you're wrong. It's been proven, a scientific fact, that Asian women have a better sexual fit with black men." And I looked at him and I tried to keep from laughing. And then this other guy, about maybe 6 from him, stood and said, "Yeah, I know, I saw that literature too." And I started laughing. I said, "This is incredible. The lies that we're being fed and what we believe." And of course, they couldn't come up with the source. And even if they did, I doubt very seriously if I would have dealt with it seriously. But we come up with all of these asinine excuses as to why it is appropriate for black males to be with anything but an African woman. Biology shows that there is no relationship whatsoever between body size and sexual fit. There's no relationship whatsoever between the size of a man's penis and the size of a woman's vagina and the better sexual fit. We get off on these jokes about foot sizes and the size of his this and the size of her that. That's got nothing to do with anything. That's got absolutely nothing to do with anything. It's got nothing to do with satisfaction. It's got nothing to do with pleasure. It's got nothing to do with any of the rest of those things. Those are fantastic myths that have no grounding in any truth whatsoever. So this better sexual fit nonsense doesn't make sense. And of course, from that, we'd have to have the logic that since white women, to a significant degree, many of them are skin and bones except those who have had themselves blown up in surgery, and Asian women who tend to be shorter, black women who are seen as larger would have the least best sexual fit with African men. So the smaller the woman, then the better the sexual fit according to this logic. So Asians would be the most likely candidates for black males to sleep in with, and then white females, and then black females least of all because of their size. Supposedly they're too large to be with African men. Of course, this plays with the power argument where you have powerless men trying to feel like men. In the West, the man is supposed to be taller than the woman, and this is translated into his better ability to protect her, or he's stronger in the relationship, etc., etc. So the logic here would be that these black males who are adults or are becoming adults, they need someone who they can be over, who they can feel stronger than, who they can protect better. And it goes deeper than just some better sexual fit. It has a lot to do with the ego in terms of their ability to be powerful in this world. I'll keep going on to this matriarchy complex. And this is the one that to me is an affront to every African, every black woman on this planet. The matriarchy complex is the argument that black women are overbearing, that they are too aggressive, that they want to dominate everything, that they don't allow a man to be a man. Now, I don't have that issue. When I was growing up, I didn't know any man who didn't have that issue of being dominated by a woman. Now, I knew one guy who, when I was small, they called him henpecked, because she was always after him for this, always after him to do that, and he was always running to and fro trying to get this done and that done for her. But he was an extreme anomaly in the community that I grew up in. I'm trying to figure out at what point this changed. And every African woman who I knew was strong. Every African woman I knew who I grew up around, if the father somehow disappeared, was killed, died, went to prison, whatever, everything in the family would be handled. And what she couldn't handle, there were enough African men, black men in the community to take up the slack. But I didn't see weak black women. And I wouldn't want to see that. And in fact, it says something to me about black males who have to have somebody less than them in order to be a man. That reminds me in the AUC where some students at certain campuses will talk about students on other campuses and put them down. And I would say, well, it's a sad statement about somebody that in order for you to feel like you're somebody, you have to put somebody down. But I would hate to have a situation where African women forget what it's like to be in this world as an African woman with children, and there's no man there, and there's no additional income, and times may be hard, and you have to struggle. I would hate to run into a situation where African women have forgotten about that, and then it happened. African women are raised to be strong. There's a saying that African mothers raise their daughters and they baby their sons. And I would suggest that that is because they know that their daughter may end up having to take care of herself, by herself, and that this is a hard world. So if African women are hard, if African women are overbearing, then I applaud that, because we need strong women. We're still at war. And men, African men, these African males are looking for women who will simply soothe their little bruises and their little cuts instead of making them go out and be the kind of men that they need to be to provide for and protect our community the way that it isn't being provided for and protected. But I'm going to read these two quotes that reflect this insanity of European beauty, that white women are the most beautiful things that walked on this planet for African men.
What page is this on?
This is on page 60 and 61. The first one is, I said, from Fanon, and the second one is from Cleaver. Fanon said, "Out of the blackest part of my soul, across the zebra striping of my mind, surges this desire to be suddenly white. I wish to be acknowledged not as black, but as white. Now, who but a white woman can do this for me? By loving me, she proves that I am worthy of white love. I am loved by a white man. I am a white man. Her love takes me onto the noble road that leads to total realization. I marry white culture, white beauty, whiteness. When my restless hand caresses those white breasts, they grasp white civilization and dignity and make them mine." Cleaver says, "There is no love left between a black man and a black woman. Take me, for instance. I love white women and hate black women. It's just in me, so deep that I don't even try to get it out of me anymore." And quick point here, and we have to be careful when we're giving our children's books. Man, Child in the Promised Land. There's a love between him and this white girl in the movie, in this book, and he says this is the first time, all these black girls and women he's been with, he says it's the first time he had ever experienced love was when he was with this white woman. Cleaver, I'll continue, "I'd jump over 10 nigger bitches just to be with one white woman. Ain't no such thing as an ugly white woman. A white woman is beautiful even if she's bald-headed and only has one tooth. It's not just the fact that she's a woman that I love. I love her skin, her soft, smooth, white skin. I like to just lick her white feet as if sweet, fresh honey flows from her pores, and just to touch her long, silky hair. There's a softness about white women, something delicate and soft inside her. But a nigger bitch seems to be full of steel, granite hard and resisting, not soft and submissive like a white woman. Ain't nothing more beautiful than a white woman's hair being blown by the wind. A white woman is more than a woman to me. She's like a goddess, a symbol. My love for her is religious and beyond fulfillment. I worship her. I love a white woman's dirty drawers. Now that's about as close to insanity as I would care to get in this world, in this reality. But that's a lot of black males. That's a lot of black males. Some of them realize it, and when they see you looking and the look isn't of awe and respect and appreciation, then they know, and they know what they're doing is contradictory, and they feel their self-hate. They'll quickly look away and quickly move on. Some of them in their arrogance won't recognize it. They'll wonder why you're not smiling in approval of them with this white woman, and they'll keep smiling and keep doing what they're doing and absolutely not understand the level of insanity that they're operating at. The 33rd principle of Ma'at says that I will not commit treason. I will not commit treason against my ancestors. And this is one of the most dangerous forms of treason. The move to assist with the genetic annihilation of African people, even though Francis Cress Welsing, of course, is right. You add white to anything, it's no longer white. But the mind is white, and the move is to keep trying to move in that direction, toward whiteness. So this is one of the greatest forms of treason that African people have begun to do in significant numbers. And if we want to be African, and return to our traditions with the strength which we had, then we have to stop this nonsense. Either we have to let those people who are crazy enough to do this go, or we have to, and it's not an or, we should do both. And we need to close ranks on those of us who haven't been insulted by this insanity, and to protect those who don't want to be insulted, and to bring African complements together so that we can maintain families and communities and be strong in the way we need to be. We also need to make sure that we really, not just out in society, because they're going to be bombarded with being ugly, we have to make sure that our children are clear on their beauty. And I'm not talking about how some people have raised their children up to be arrogant, and I'm all this, and I'm all pretty, and I'm all that, and we have to tell them, well, somebody lied to you. They have to be raised with a sense of beauty that is what comes with honor of self. Not that I'm somebody who's so pretty that everybody must look at me, but somebody who is self-respecting, and I know that I'm beautiful because I look like my ancestors, and my ancestors were beautiful. Instead, I am a firm believer that truth is effective for thinking people. So the old logic that truth will change anybody, I don't buy that. I think the truth is effective for thinking people who realize that something is wrong, that something is not quite right. So doing things like what you're doing here with this video, me doing what I did with the book, having conversations with people about the excuses that they are given or the reasons that they are giving for marrying somebody outside of their race, letting them understand, or at least real men, real African men understand that African women are a resource. They are a precious commodity for us. They are a precious commodity in our community, and we need to find ways to make sure that our sisters are taken care of. And one of those ways, of course, are those men who consider themselves to be African and possibly consider themselves to be players, to settle down and think about the responsibility of manhood, to think about the responsibility of taking care of sisters, of respecting sisters who they are in relationships with. We also have to make the step, a brave step for a lot of us, toward teaching our children the truth instead of being afraid to tell them the truth. So many of us are afraid to tell them the truth about so many of the insanities in the West because we don't want them to go out in the world to be hurt, or we don't want anybody to find that we will be accosted. In our traditions, the children were most important thing in the village. They were the most important thing. So how can we bring ourselves as responsible, respecting parents to lie to our children when we know something else is the truth? So I know people who know that this is wrong, that this is incorrect for African people, but they will still talk to their children and say, you know, whatever you do, whatever, knowing that somebody else is bringing them up. We have to start socializing our own children instead of turning them over to someone else. Carter G. Woodson said, it's a foolish people, and I'm paraphrasing him, but it's a foolish people that turn their children over to their enemy for education. And we're allowing that to happen. So when our children come home and say, well, you know, I just married this white girl, I just married this white guy, then we shouldn't go into shock. We shouldn't be upset. We shouldn't be surprised. If we told them the truth. If we told them the truth. If we told them the truth, then we have every right to be surprised. But if we didn't tell them the truth, then we have no right to say anything. We have no right to question anything that they say. We have to also work on having people who have this understanding put out books, put out DVDs, put out information, give lectures on this, because you have people out there who want to know, who think they're alone. And there's a sister out in Idaho, somewhere in Idaho, she's out there by herself. And I received an email from her. She had found a copy of the Homosexuality and Feminization of African Males book at a swap meet out there. And she bought it, and she read it, and she sent me an email, and she said, I'm so thankful for this book. I thought I was alone. I was getting ready to change my position. And so people have to be aware that there are Africans who believe that we are African at heart. They believe we are our ancestors and should act accordingly. Other than that, we just have to serve as a model.
Now, you said that she had bought your homo book?
Yes.
And she's going to change her position on what?
No, she was getting ready to change her position on whether it was normal and natural for black folks. She was thinking that her saying that this was not an African thing, that this is not something that African people can do. She was beginning, because so many people around her, everybody around her was telling her, well, no, something's wrong with you. That's a wrong position to take. It's part of traditional African society, all the rest of this mess. And then when she read the book, she said, oh, okay. Well, I know that I'm not crazy. I know I'm not losing it. I know I don't need to change my mind because the rest of the world is saying that I'm wrong. She knew that there were many people in this world who understand that that is not part and parcel of being African. Just like sleeping with the enemy is not part and parcel of what people who have power do. They don't sleep with people who they consider to be their destroyers or their enemy. People don't sleep with their enemies unless they're trying to get information. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know any of these black males out here sleeping with these European females who are trying to get information from them. They're sleeping for other reasons, reasons would have no conscience to them. So people who are people of power, who are self-respecting, who are self-loving, who see themselves as people of worth, who see themselves as beautiful, who see themselves as, what's the word I'm looking for, who have integrity, who don't want to be violated from the outside or be changed into something that they are not. These people do not go outside of themselves looking for someone to be with, to be loved, to be validated. They know who they are and they act accordingly, and they don't take care of what other people would throw away.